just make a few remarks and, of course, open it up for questions. It's a great day for Pac-12 football. We got some very close matchups and some big stages. Today's a great example of the strength of some of our television relationships. Great window here on Fox, followed by the Oregon-Washington State game. It was awesome, obviously, for the state of Washington, the Pac-12, to have game day in Pullman, which was terrific. So the media attention of the country certainly focused on the Pac-12 today in a great way. And today also showcases the depth and competitiveness and how close the conference is this year. So today's a great showcase for the conference. I think before I open it up for questions, I wanted to also just address proactively some of the issues that came to the fore a couple of weeks ago about officiating. We started by acknowledging the mistakes in the protocol around the Washington State USC game. We corrected those immediately in terms of the protocol and who's involved in any replay review decisions, and we're in the process of compiling a more thorough report that we'll have a chance to discuss with members over the next couple of weeks. So with that, happy to answer any questions that you have.
Larry, you had the other report from Yahoo last night about the text exchanges with Mike Leach. Your reaction to some of those? Obviously, you were involved in some of those conversations.
Yeah, so I saw it, and I won't comment on private communications we have with coaches. What I will say is, in terms of our procedures, if there's ever a concern raised, an allegation, we immediately go to our schools, our university athletics departments, see if they want an inquiry into something like that. And Washington State declined for us to do that. So beyond that, I won't make any other comment about it.
How are your officials handling targeting as a rule? How have you been?
Yeah, well, there's an NCAA policy about targeting, and it's evolved every year. So there's a big effort to coordinate nationally the approach to targeting and how it's called. So, there's an attempt to really coordinate that. There's national officials, there's national replay supervisors, and I think all the conferences try to approach it in the same way.
How have your guys handled it? Are you happy with how they've done?
On targeting generally?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Last year, we actually called more targeting calls than any other conference in the country. And, it's a important area of focus for ours. Our conference, one of the things I do want to make clear is that, when it comes to student-athlete health and safety, that is something that our conference really holds as a very high priority. And I don't think there's any other conference that has made the efforts and made the investments that we've made in that area. We're the only conference that's we've made $10 million investment in research grants. There have been 18 grants to research student-athlete health with a high priority on head trauma. We hosted at UCLA with the Department of Defense and NCA a whole conference on head trauma and concussions in sport. Many of you will be familiar with the fact that we're a conference whose coaches voluntarily restricted the amount of contact in practice. Pac-12 has been seen as a leader when it comes to student-athlete health and safety, certainly when it comes to protecting student-athletes. So, I did want to make that clear because I take very seriously any question about this conference's commitment to student-athlete health.
Larry, how does a mistake in protocol happen?
Well, there were two aspects of the mistake. One is there was ambiguity about who's got the final call and who could actually make a call when it comes to replay. The second was involving someone in the process, even though they were supposed to be in a support role, where the optics could be that there's a conflict of interest. So the mistake was made in the design of it, and I take responsibility for that. And that's what we immediately cleaned up.
Was Woody always present in the replay decision making before this?
He has been when he's been there. He often is out at games, working with our schools. But when he's been in the command center from time to time, not regularly, if there's been a very controversial call, especially one around targeting, which we elevate in terms of priority because of student-athlete health and safety issues, he would weigh in. But there's never been a question about, up until this call, about who makes the final decision. It's the replay supervisor. So one of the first things I did was interview our supervisor of replays and to find out, was this an isolated incident or had there been any other instances where he felt that he was being pressured or persuaded, or someone else was making the decision, and he assured me this is the only instance. So we're doing a more thorough review of it. We've got meetings coming up with our members where we'll review that. But from what I've seen so far, that's the only instance where there's been any concern about who's made the decision.
Did you get an explanation how and why it happened?
Yes.
And what was it?
There was question about all the TV angles. Mr. Dixon was weighing in as to precedent and other calls we've made, because we do strive for consistency, and that's an important part of the process. Are we being consistent about how we're making the call? And according to him, it was a misinterpretation, miscommunication, where our replay officials thought he was telling them to not put on targeting, because targeting was not called on the field. Our replay supervisors were inclined to put it on. They interpret him saying, don't put it on. That wasn't his intention. But the fact there's any confusion about that, from my perspective, indicates the problem. There can't be any confusion about how these decisions get made.
Larry, is it safe to say, let's be honest, that a guy like Woody should never, ever, ever be allowed to even call a replay booth, to even offer his opinion during a game? Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is, and that's why I made the change.
Got it.
Can you understand what coaches, specifically Mike Leach, would be frustrated and upset at the process right now?
I definitely understand coach frustration. There's a lot of frustration that builds up every year when there are controversial calls. I absolutely get it.
Are you concerned about incidents like this contributing to people's perception of the reputation of the Pac-12? It's kind of being in disarray right now.
I'm always concerned if there's issues that arise, or certainly questions about officiating, which are not new, and they're not unique to the Pac-12, by the way. But we hold as our most important priorities the integrity of the competition, student athlete health and welfare. So a lot of time and attention and focus are spent on these things. Officiating is not perfect. There are mistakes that are made, and you're always striving to be better. I'm very proud of our program and our leadership. We've got top-notch people. We've made significant investments. Huge efforts are put into training, recruitment of officials, accountability and grading. But of course it's frustrating when there's controversy around calls like this.
Does the conference have a retroactive targeting penalty that they can assess if there is determined that there was mistargeting?
So to be clear, the Pac-12 doesn't have any different rules from anyone else. The NCAA rules around replay and around targeting are national. And every conference is supposed to strive to call them the same way. And there's a lot of discussion nationally about calls and whether that's being achieved or not.
What do you think about the job that you're doing? I mean, there's no bigger critic of you, I assume, than you. Evaluate yourself.
That evaluation is ultimately up to our presidents and chancellors. That's who I work for. But I do go through a process every year where I'm self-critical, and we review it and we discuss it. But ultimately, I work for presidents and chancellors of our university.
There are no Pac-12 teams in the top 10 right now. There's a Pac-12 will be left out of that all the way out. Do you take that personally, or what are you guys doing as a call?
Well, it's too early from my perspective to come to that conclusion.
I think others would disagree.
There's a lot of football left to play, and I don't think anyone can predict what's going to happen in the next few weeks. We got some one-loss teams. We got some high-quality football being played in this conference, and I'm not ready to predict what's going to happen at the end of the season.
What do you say to those who think that the schedule should be, I hate to use the word manipulated, but to favor the top teams?
Yeah, we're having an interesting discussion right now in our league amongst our coaches and ADs about whether we should adjust some of our philosophies about scheduling. Up till now, the view of our coaches and our athletics directors has been we should not get in the business of trying to identify before the season starts who the best teams are likely to be and give them a favorable schedule. But those things are being discussed. We regularly discuss 9 conference games versus 8. We're discussing the placement of buys. Our conference has been very egalitarian about how we've done the schedule historically, but I think in this new world with the college football playoff and the importance people place on that, we're going through a process as we speak to evaluate some of our scheduling parameters.
Larry, to follow up on Larry's question, do you think the Pac-12 has a credibility issue with their officials right now?
With our officials?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think anyone that's aware of the effort and the caliber of people that are involved, and frankly the independent people that work with all the conferences, hold our officiating in very, very high regard. We've